Welcome, Cargo Cafeers. This is our first summer edition of Cargo Cafe. Super excited about that. Less excited about the fact that we don't have our normal host, Miss Libby. Unfortunately, she's out of town, so you have to deal with me being the DJ of this party today. Luckily, I got Mr. Jay Devers with me to help out as well. I'm Riley Wiles, Managing Partner, Corporate Development. Going to try to keep the train on the tracks during this Cargo Cafe, and I'll let Jay introduce himself.
Hey, welcome everybody. Jay Devers, Managing Partner with Bestway International. Thank you for spending a couple minutes of your morning with us today, and we're super excited about what we have to come for you.
Excellent. Is there a little award you wanted to mention today, Jay? I think now's the time to pound on your chest a little bit.
Well, it's not my chest that's getting pounded. Just super proud. Yesterday we attended the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce Small Business Awards, which was super exciting. And it turned out that our crew here and our team was recognized as the Paul Weida International Small Business of the Year for the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. It's an amazing award for us. Kind of was a surprise, I think. And, Paul himself, who I've worked with for many, many years, was there, which made the event even extra special. But just to see the hard work of our crew recognized in that fashion is so awesome. And we're super proud. Haven't really had a chance to share it much with the team. But, for the rest of the year, we're going to be known as the Paul Weida International Small Business of the Year in Kansas City, and so just can't say how proud I am enough of the crew. And so, thanks for giving me a chance to put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. The crew is awesome, and I absolutely cannot wait to celebrate with them. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It is
well earned on their part for sure. As always, the Cargo Cafe, we like to bring up very important topics in the logistics and supply chain space. Many would argue the topic today is the most important, making sure that you're covered and protected and knowing when and how and all that good stuff. And our guest today is wildly in tune with that and can't wait to hear all of his great insights and thoughts. And hopefully we get some good questions for him and can answer some stuff that maybe's been eaten at you. Prior to bringing David on, I'm going to try to jump in. Jack has a tariff update for us. Section 232, duties in steel and aluminum, as well as derivative products of steel and aluminum, were increased globally from 25% to 50%. In addition to this increase, the loophole where the non-steel aluminum value of derivative products were exempt from IEEPA tariffs has been closed, meaning that steel and aluminum value of a derivative product is tariffed at 50%, while the remaining value of the product is tariffed at its applicable IEEPA tariff. So with that, if you have additional questions, certainly reach out to Libby, myself, anybody here at the team. We'll get you in touch with the right guys to help really dive into your product and help navigate those murky waters on the tariff side of things right now. Our guest today, Mr. David Pasco, going to give you a little background on him, and then we're going to bring him in to share the wonderful world of insurance. Mr. Pasco joined Roanoke in the Chicago office in 2010 with an expertise in domestic freight forwarders and property brokers. Prior to joining Roanoke's team, Dave was vice president of administration for a multi-million-dollar freight forwarding company based in Minneapolis and was responsible for negotiation and day-to-day execution of all vendor and customer contracts. The scope of David's job also included the procurement and placement of all business insurance. It was during the execution of this duty that David transitioned all business and transportation-related insurance matters to Roanoke. David took an opportunity to start his own transportation consulting company in 2009 and completed the insurance licensing process for the state of Minnesota. That's quite a background. And with that, the man who needed no introduction, but we gave him one anyways, Mr. David Pasco.
Well, Riley, I really want to thank you for, covering the update on tariffs, because you managed to find something even more boring than cargo insurance. Now, all kidding aside, that information is very critical. But uh, I've been working with Jay and the team at Bestway for, God, it's been a long time, and we always believe that you got to have a little levity. You got to have a little fun with this. If you don't have fun with this, then it becomes a job. And who wants to go to a job? Okay, you want to go to something every day that excites you. And whereas you guys got a small business award, we never considered you to be small business. Okay, you guys have always shown that you can handle whatever is thrown at you. So, small business may be the title, but I've always, considered you guys to be, large players, in the marketplace in KC.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. And the reason we can tackle those is finding great partners like yourself, for sure.
That's right. And Dave, before you get started, the audience is meeting you maybe for the first time, but we have worked together for over 20 years, I know, easily. And
yeah.
Dave's commitment to our market and our trade is unbelievable. I can't tell you how many trips he's made to Kansas City and speaking engagements he's done. So we're super excited to have one of the real experts and one of the real advocates for risk management in the Midwest on today, and can't wait to get started.
Perfect. So why don't we just roll right into it? Okay, why is cargo insurance important? Okay, when we're talking about cargo insurance, we're talking about, an all-risk policy that will cover things that a carrier doesn't cover. Most people's engagement with insurance is their house insurance, their car insurance, things that you touch in your daily life. Well, in professional transportation, things are a little different. The coverage that a trucker may have, protects the trucker, because there's no way that a trucker could actually afford to buy insurance to cover every single piece of freight on his truck, all risk. So there are certain exclusions on a trucker's policy, things that are with, outside of the trucker's control. Things like natural disaster, not going to be covered. So what Shipper's Interest does is it covers not only the value of the actual commercial value of the merchandise, it will cover your freight and any fees associated to that. With our particular policy that we have Bestway with, we have our own in-house claim service. We've got, I'll tell you a quick thing. Roanoke is an underwriter, and we're also a insurance broker. That means that you get the best of both things when you're dealing with Bestway. So we have access to multiple markets. Our market is a Lloyd's market that we use for Bestway, and we have the largest group of insurance adjusters and people who subrogate claims, because it's very important that we not only pay a claim on a timely basis, but we go after the actual trucker who caused the issue. This is the way to protect your freight. Anyone who's just relying on carrier liability, well, you're rolling the dice. And, it's kind of like sooner or later, it's going to be your turn in the barrel with a claim. And then it's going to rely on, the carrier liability, and, they have, 90 or more days to get back to you, in the event of a claim. If you insure something, with Bestway, we're going to handle the claim from day one, which means that there's somebody who is working with you, to look at the merits of the claim, get you paid, and then subrogate against the carrier. So when you're looking at things, it's really two different matters here. Think of the motor truck cargo as protecting the trucker, and look at the cargo insurance through Bestway as protecting you, the shipper.
That's terrific, Dave. And hopefully time will allow us to talk a little bit more about how the relatively deficient the default carrier coverage is, and the importance of understanding a more comprehensive approach to covering what could be the full value of a potential loss.
Yeah, one of the things I did previous to coming to Roanoke was vice president of administration for a large freight forwarder, and I also ran the claims department. Okay, and we had a very demanding customer that Jay's familiar with, Best Buy. Okay, so we had to have payment or compromise settlement to the customer in 30 days contractually. I will tell you that in dealing with most carriers, the first response that you get from the carrier is a denial. Okay, and which means that they're pretty much walking away from everything. So leaving yourself in the hands of people that you may or may not know to try to get your claim settled, as opposed to paying the extra surcharge that there is, because let's face it, in order to get premium coverage, there is a charge to it, but you are going to get paid to the actual commercial invoice value of your freight, as opposed to remember, if you're moving something LTL and the carrier has $100,000 worth of coverage for that truck, depending on his policy, that $100,000 is split between all of the shipments on the truck. Okay, so let's go get into the types of cargo insurance. The most comprehensive is going to be all risk, and I say all risk. There are some exclusions. Okay, you need to make sure that you are presenting your freight in a manner that is comparable to how you're transporting it. I will say that over the course of time, somebody has come up with the idea that shrink wrap is packaging. Now, shrink wrap may keep it clean, but it's really not packaging. So the biggest incidents of where we would see a questioning of a claim would be in packaging. I will tell you from experience that if you are a shipper that ships full truckload freight and LTL freight, you really need to take a look at your packaging for your LTL freight. The simple reason is typically full truckload is going point to point, or maybe they're going to do a milk run where they're stopping and unloading a third of the freight, go to the next stop, unload the third of the freight. But in LTL, there are occasions of where your freight can go through 6 different LTL distribution centers, so it's handled 6 times. So that being said, you need to make sure that your packaging can withstand the handling of it being shipped in essence 6 times. So Jay and the crew can help you out with that. And to tell you the truth, where some of that stuff comes to light is in the claims process, where we take a look at claims and then we make suggestions to the Bestway crew to communicate to the shipping audience about how best to protect the freight. We've got data. There are LTL carriers that are better in some parts of the country than others. Okay, so that's all data that we can share. Okay, FPA coverage, which is free at particular average, which is an old English term because this is a Lloyd's policy. It's written in English, but not exactly American English. What that means is this coverage is for, it's a named risk peril. Now, if you look at your household, your homeowner's policy, more than likely it's a named risk peril where it's going to cover, lightning, fire, wind, that sort of thing. So with FPA coverage means something has to actually happen to the conveyance. Okay. Vessel needs to, get struck by another vessel. High winds causes containers to be blown overboard. Heavy seas cause, containers to be, washed overboard. In the domestic market, what this means is the truck has to be in an accident. It might be a case of where the brakes, seize up, they lock up, they start a fire in the tires. And if you've ever seen a trailer fire, it takes about, once it catches on fire, it takes all of about, 5 minutes for the whole thing to be nothing but ashes. Okay. Now, what FPA coverage is good for is when you are moving things that may be of low cost, or may be used in international movements. If you are moving, say, grain, which may have a very low value per container, say 20,000, 30,000. You may not think that, insuring at all risk, makes sense because of the cost. FPA, with it being a lower form of coverage, is still going to cover you for things like general average, which is very important. General average, which we could probably do a whole session on general average, but I'll give you a rundown real quick. General average happens when something happens to the vessel. If they have to jettison cargo to save the vessel, if there's a catastrophic breakdown of the steering or of the engines that causes the vessel to be towed to a port to be repaired. These are all things that you being on board that vessel, you accept the fact that you would be party to a general average claim. It's an ancient, dates back to the Phoenicians. Basically, if you're putting stuff on, if I'm the boat owner and you're putting stuff on my boat, and there's something that happens that affects everybody on the vessel, affects all of their cargo, well, you're going to be party to that claim. Doesn't sound fair, but unfortunately that's the way it is. Shipper's interest, all risk cargo insurance, full value for cargo owners and intermediaries. That's going to be, along with all risk, hand in hand, your, let's call it level 1 coverage. FPA, let's call it level 2 coverage. You can also get an open cargo policy with Bestway, or that all of your shipments will be insured, which takes the guesswork out of, are you insuring this shipment? Are you not insuring that shipment? Not insuring your shipment, you're once again relying on carrier liability, which depending on, carriers, your domestic guys are going to be, $100,000, per truckload, which can be shared amongst multiple shippers. Then you've got your international, shipments at 23 SDRs per shipment. Then you've got some domestic shippers who are also at 50 cents a pound. So, making sure that you are protecting your assets, as you're moving them, and you're not disappointed, when you have a claim come up, is very important. Do you guys have any questions about that, Riley, Jay?
Well, Dave, this is great stuff. Let's, as we go, see if we can't provide some guidance for the shippers. I'm thinking specifically about, let's say you're a shipper and let's say that you're confused about whether you've got the right kind of coverage or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a conversation to be had about, hey, what do I want my experience to be like in the event of a total loss? Or what do I want my experience to be like in the event of a partial loss? And you kind of build your coverage plan around how you want to see things happen as the losses could happen. I think that typically will lead an informed shipper to the decision on which policy and which level of coverage is right. But
Sure.
we can certainly work that into our comments here.
Yeah, it's a great statement, question. The whole idea is, okay, a risk transfer. Okay, so what is as Mr. Shipper, what sort of risk am I willing to take myself? Okay, when you are not making yourself a candidate for a shipper's interest policy, or you're not accepting that level of coverage, well, then you go down to the basics, and you need to forecast into your annual budget that at some point in time you're going to lose something. Okay, which means that you need to take a look at your average values that you are shipping. We've got data that in a lot of cases, if you're shipping LTL, 1 in 60 shipments are going to be damaged. Okay, if you are not experiencing that, thank goodness for that. Okay, but at some point in time, you do need to make a conscious decision about what you're going to do and how you are going to protect yourself. Okay, a lot of people do this by commodity, by what commodities they ship. Okay, some are targeted commodities. Okay, which I consider a targeted commodity to be anything that some guy at the local bar may be selling out of the back of his trunk. Or we've got people out in California, Houston, Miami, active groups of bad people, felons that this is their business. Stealing freight is their business, and sooner or later you're going to have your turn in the barrel. So setting up what is your if you're in the transportation division as a shipper, what is your company's appetite for risk? Okay, if you are a distributor, okay, you need to forecast on, okay, so what happens being a distributor? I'm not the manufacturer, so I'm going to have to replace this product at some point. Okay, if it gets damaged, lost, or stolen. Okay, so how many hits can you take? And is it worth that, as opposed to, getting a shipper's interest policy and, seeing what the costs and the advantages are of doing that, as opposed to basically rolling the dice. Now, when we talk about utmost good faith, insurance, believe it or not, is still one of those things that is basically done by handshake. Okay, you give us information, okay, and we believe you. Sometimes it's, as a, insurance guy, it's kind of hard to understand how every single thing that you ship, including freight, is $10,000. Okay, the odds on that are like slim and none, but we believe you. Okay. the thing is that, you may be penalizing yourself when you have a claim. Okay, so it's always good to, shipper's interest is going to ask you to pay from $1. Okay, and it's not contingent upon the trucker's policy. Okay, so there's oftentimes confusion about, well, the trucker's got 100,000. Okay, and the load is 150,000, so I'm going to buy shipper's interest on the 50,000. You're mixing oil and water. You're mixing two different coverages. One is legal liability on the trucker's part, and the other is shipper's interest. The shipper's interest does not rely on participation of the motor truck carrier's policy in order to get you paid. Okay. I think we've covered, some of this. Let's talk about deductibles. There are certain items that are higher in risk, and for the lack of a better term, there's smaller claims. Okay, let's take, for instance, bagged goods. Okay, and we're talking about super sacks. Okay, there's a deductible on the policy for tearing and ripping, because that's what they do. Okay, that's basically the risk. I mean, you could possibly have a container with a hole in the roof, and the entire load gets wet and therefore unusable. But typically, the deductibles start out at $250 and work their way up, but it's only for selected classes of merchandise. Blocks and ceramic tiles, marble blocks, steel. Steel has insuring conditions, and funny that we should bring up steel tariffs. Well, raw steel rusts, it oxidizes. It's a nature of the beast. So there's no cover for rusting and oxidation. Let's see what else would be on that list. Alcohol, wine, liquor. And that's there's a small deductible of $250 because alcohol walks away. Somebody always likes to sample it. Not that we've ever sampled alcohol in our lives, but in the transportation setting, it has a tendency to not necessarily the whole shipment walks away, but somebody takes a bottle, or they drop a case, or forklift drivers, put a fork hole in, 4 cases, and, we have some damage. So there are some deductibles, but generally, okay, what people are moving in the, in commerce would be what we call new approved general merchandise, okay, which has no deductible on the Bestway policy. And if you ever have a question, just ask.
This is my favorite part, Dave. I've been waiting, really, really excited to get to this slide.
Oh, claims process. Well, we can't help you if we don't know you need help. Okay, and we always say, get us involved early, because to be honest with you, I've got an army of professionals to handle this. Okay, sometimes shippers will try to handle it with the carrier themselves. Well, why do that? All you're going to do is get frustrated. Okay, an insured shipment, report it promptly. If nothing happens and it goes away, we either find the shipment and nothing is wrong, or when you report it promptly, if there is any sort of damage that needs to be repaired, well, certainly we want to get a surveyor out to survey that and get it repaired and get it installed as soon as we possibly can. Okay. Uh, we like to say that if we get a fully documented claim, which would be, the commercial invoice, the bill of lading, any other communication that may have gone on, we can get these things paid, in under 30 days. We triage claims. If we get a full claim, we want to, time is money for everyone. So, what our adjusters do is if they can, dispense with the claim today, okay, they're going to dispense with the claim today. Okay. Once again, bill of lading, commercial invoice, packing list, and photographs of the damage. And I want to tell you that photographs is, I always like to qualify that with, okay, give us some sort of perspective. I once got a claim for a TV, and they gave me a picture of the scratch that was on the TV screen. Now, granted, scratch is a scratch on the TV screen, and it's useless after that. But I mean, it turns out to be about a quarter of an inch, but it looked like it was 42 inches. Okay, so what we always like to say is, okay, take a step back, give us a little perspective on the first shot, so that we know what we're looking at. Okay, and then do your close-up work, because the better we off on the first bite of this thing, the lesser the amount of frustration that you're gonna get. We've got experts. My senior VP of claims has been doing claims for pretty much like 30 years. And I got to tell you, Cindy Garbrook, she may be doing it for 32 years, but she's got her feet firmly on the ground in the now. Okay. She's connected with law enforcement all over the country. We've got people that we have on retainer as far as lawyers, investigators, and just she's just really well placed in the transportation claims. And you never know. Something goes missing, letting us know as soon as possible. As soon as I mean, if we have found stuff that, believe it or not, the shipper didn't even know was missing yet. Okay, because we've got connections that are, doing ongoing investigations of different groups of people all over the country that make this their job to steal stuff. So, whenever there's an arrest, well, they start going through the freight. And generally there's, they can't get rid of all of the identifiers on the freight, and we find stuff. Okay. So asking for, and I got to tell you, our claims people live for the investigation part. I mean, it's something that if Cindy can hang another scalp on her wall, she'll hang another scalp on her wall, because that's
There's
just the way she's wired.
Yeah, one of the provide documentation, I see photographs of the damage. One thing I've noticed some of our clients doing, and just made it a practice of theirs, is taking photos of the freight when it leaves. And then if there's anything on the receiving end, snagging a picture on the receiving end. So to your point, hey, give us a real clear picture of what we're dealing with here. When you got a photo of it all loaded up on the trailer, and then a photo when it arrives, you've made it very, very difficult for a trucking company to deny that this happened in transit or some other reason. So it's just good practices, especially if you're a frequent shipper or, your stuff has any value whatsoever. So the providing documentation to me is just key, and having a plan every time you send something out the door, just knowing what your mitigation steps are, and making sure that you have everything just ready, dialed up. So to your point, we get you paid in under 30 days, and business isn't really impacted. You just continue on your merry way because you got everything lined up. So
Yeah,
very
good point. Those pre-shipment photos, worth $1 million.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's kind of hard for the carrier to dispute that. Okay, I will mention, if you're moving a large freight on flatbeds, okay, and the driver says, "Hey, I'm going to pull away from the dock and I'm going to, lash it down and I'm going to tarp it in the parking lot." Those are the guys that concern me, okay, because of the fact that you're no longer in control of what he's doing. Okay, you're no longer witnessing what he's doing, and a lot of times, especially on large, complicated pieces, if you, the shipper, have lash down, requirements. Okay, make sure that you let Bestway know so that Bestway can pass them on to the carriers so that everybody understands where to lash it down and the spots to avoid. Okay, so that's a very good point about the pictures.
Yeah, and I think that kind of ties into this slide, and I do have to put you up on a shot clock here. I want to make sure we cover everything. We do have a few more minutes to cruise through, but I think choosing the right carrier is wildly important, and where we actually become that bridge between your expertise and our shippers that we do business with.
Yeah, we rely upon Bestway to when we underwrite Bestway's policy, we rely on them to choose proper carriers. Okay, and conversely, they want to choose the proper carrier because nobody wants to have these conversations about we chose a carrier and the carrier dropped the ball. It's incumbent upon Bestway to make the right choices. Unfortunately, and I learned this when I was in freight, you're as good as you're as good as that guy behind the wheel. Okay, that's going to be the memorable experience. So Riley and Jay's teams making sure that they select the proper carriers, and especially making sure that they have experience with your particular commodity is important. Okay. And, they do that through their vetting process, compliance and certifications, once again, through, their carrier selection process. They're weeding out the guys who are not up to snuff as far as their, insurance and other regulatory requirements. And they possess the necessary certifications. So, if it's oversized, overweight, they're making sure that they, are taking the proper precautions to match you up with the right carrier. Okay. And technology integration, the ability to track and give you real-time updates on shipments, unfortunately, the courts have kind of the amount of interaction that property brokers and freight forwarders can have, with the actual carrier. But I know that Bestway is doing everything they can up to those limitations. Hey, we're talking about, believe it or not, there are some people that want to talk to the driver like every 15 minutes. Look at it this way. Do the proper communication with the driver, do timely communication with the driver, and don't disturb the driver. Okay, because the last thing you want is a driver saying, well, I was talking to Riley for 15 times on Thursday and I didn't notice the school bus of children. Okay, so but I know that working with Bestway for the number of years, these guys have got this thing wired to a science. So they're doing exactly what they need to do in order to give you real-time updates on your shipments. So
I think it's safe to say nobody wants to talk to me 15 times a day, Dave. So we got that. That's part of our SOP. Make sure nobody has to talk to Riley 15 times a day.
okay, so best practices. What can we take out of this? Okay, reviewing policies regularly. Okay, something that Jay and I do, and if you happen to come to Jay and you are a new shipper, and we need to talk about we get on the phone, we can talk to you one-on-one and go through the coverages, answer any questions that you have. Jay's team stays informed about industry changes, insurance procedures. We our website, roanoketrade.com, has got a wealth of information on there. Doing risk assessments, when Jay and his team are inputting the information into our coverage doc system to, create a certificate of insurance, which is also equates to an insurance policy because it's an individual shipment for an individual shipper on a certain date and time. It's a policy. It makes sure it goes through, believe it or not, it protects the shipper from a number of things, including OFAC sanctioning. So you may not always know who your customer is, okay, but our system will check the customer's name, address, and a few other items, and find out whether it's on a watch list for the Department of Commerce. So it kind of protects you from, what you may not know about your customer. Okay, and partner with specialists. Okay, being a broker. We have unlimited markets. We've got access to the open market in London, should we ever need it. And, we do a lot of collaborative work on, special shippers, like I said, with Jay and the team. Always moving interesting stuff. Linda on the team is always got something interesting to send down the pipeline to us. Keeps us on our toes. It's not just widgets these guys are moving, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Linda's always getting into the fun, goofy stuff. Love hearing her stories every week when we get together for team meetings, because she's always getting into fun stuff.
Right, exactly. So Dave made the point of one of the best practices being the communication piece, and that's I think where our approach is a pretty good one. We don't have time to get into this, Dave, but you'll remember 2 or 3 years ago we had that piece come through that the value by the shipper was priceless. That's what they told us. That kicked off a series of pretty interesting calls as we put together the risk policy for that, something that was priceless. So yes. That was educational, though, and I think about it often. We do.
I've selectively forgotten that, I think on purpose. I think I used to have hair right here.
Yes, the great thing about that one is if you watch a football game on Sunday afternoon in a certain place, you can see that item on TV usually frequently. Yeah, that was a fun one. So, hey, got a question. I know we're running up against a time limit here, and really appreciate everybody's attention and attendance. So Kelly from our team, who is also an amazing solution provider and caregiver on her own merits, and has just about seen it all in this business. So Kelly's got a question that is very timely. We're talking about the current market conditions, piracy, acts of war, and terrorism. Elevated concern in the Red Sea, certainly for the last 18 months or so. But what would you say about that, Dave?
Right now, okay, so there are certain, if you are moving things in that neck of the woods, so to speak, okay, and you go into coverage doc, it's going to trigger a referral because underwriting is going to have to take a look at it because, as we know, things can change at a moment's notice. Okay. Right now, underwriting has said that we are not entertaining any new risks in that area. You're not a new risk. Okay. We'll take a look at anything that you have, anything going to, Israel is certainly going to be, taken a hard look at. We used to publish a war rate schedule, but the world got too crazy because we'd be publishing a war rate schedule every day. Okay, so therefore, anything that's you're shipping through, the Red Sea is going to have a second set of eyes on it. So keep in mind that it may take an extra 2 days for you to get a rate for that. Okay, which nobody likes, but we prefer it as opposed to an outright ban on shipping in that area, because that benefits no one, because then you're adding another 12 to 20 days shipping, going around Africa, as opposed to going through the Med.
Right. And Dave mentioned earlier that speaking only for our firm, we very thoroughly evaluate the policy evolution every year as we renew. And I can tell you that these particular areas, especially the piracy and the acts of war, have gotten kind of their own legs within the policy documents over the last 4 or 5 years, and have certainly become much more of a focus of the all risk coverage policies.
Right. It's and you talk about piracy and general average. I did a piece on that a couple years back, and there's a website that you can go to track this. I can't remember the name offhand, but I started looking at all of the general averages that were called, and I stopped in February of that year. This is not, it's not going away. People are bumping into nautical items that have been on charts for thousands of years, and they still hit them. People still run aground. Okay. Piracy, I have to tell you, with some of the measures that, people are taking, the additional costs, when they get into the area, adding barbed wire, to the bulwarks of, water cannons, taking on security, details, certainly adds to the cost of the transit. But knock on wood, I have not been personally involved in a piracy claim in quite a while.
Good. Oh, that's super interesting. I wish time allowed and we could tell some stories of some of the crazy stuff that we've seen over the years. But
Jay, I'd love to suggest that I know that there's probably going to be a bunch of questions that people are going to have after this. I would be more than happy to do just a Q&A session.
Yeah.
With you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's great, Dave. We appreciate that. The purpose of this particular Cargo Cafe was just kind of get this concept, this topic out there. But
mm-hmm.
that would be wonderful to dive into some Q&A. We certainly appreciate that. And speaking of that, as we wind down and wind out of time here, are there any other questions from the audience? Kelly doesn't count for getting a gift card for asking a good question, although I'll probably send her one anyway. Are there any other? We do have a bunch of gift cards here. No bad questions. Anything else that we want to ask Dave while we've got him here? We just have a couple minutes left.
First off, did I answer Kelly's question?
Well, I think you did.
Okay. Kelly can always.
So our shippers are pretty smart. If they've got stuff that's transversing areas of conflict, I'm certain they're looking into that. And to me, the answer was it bears rechecking your policy for any level of concern, if you have any, and making sure that the coverage is there that you need.
Right.
Just talk to your carrier, talk to your service provider. Let's get a conversation going.
Yeah, guessing never really works out well.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway is this. It's not super black and white, and it does require conversation and understanding the product, understanding who you're utilizing, and the more communication, the better. The more pictures, the better. The more everybody understands what's going on, and greater chance of success. And if something bad does happen, it gets mitigated quickly and efficiently.
One quick question sneaking through under the wire. I know there's some people got to bounce here because we're running up against deadline. Anna, also one of the finest solution providers that there is in this business, Anna Grossman from our team. Is it better to purchase a full policy as a shipper? Oh, this is a good one. Is it better to purchase a full policy or insure individual shipments? What are the data points to review to make this decision?
Well, look at the time. No, Anna. It all depends on the shipper appetite. Okay, yeah. I've dealt and Jay and I have dealt with some of the shippers that said, Jay, I want to insure everything. Here are the and I could send Jay. I could send you a document that is we've used before. We've kind of refined it in the last 30 days. You're talking about number of shipments per year, average number of shipments, where it's going, that sort of thing. And what we do is we throw it in the sausage maker, and we come up with a policy that says, okay, for X number of premium, okay, everything that you move is going to be covered. Okay. Now, if you need individual certificates of insurance, okay, we can do that too. Okay. But it's a pretty easy way to do things. Now, there are some people that choose to only insure particular shipments for whatever reason. Okay, those guys would have to go on a shipment by shipment basis, because otherwise, we're trying to pick out. Okay, you don't want to insure that shipment. When we get the data, we prefer the data that we get to be used in its entirety for underwriting the risk, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's a great question, but it's tough because it goes back to, what do you want your claim experience to be? What is the cost of your insurance per shipment? What is, your historic loss ratio and things like that? And right. I think that's one that honestly we can help direct. And Dave mentions that they have some more sophisticated tools to help analyze that. And then that fourth situation is, what is your obligation to either yourself or the consignee to provide a certificate of insurance and a certain level of claim service. If it's not a high obligation, you certainly start to see a case for a blanket insurance policy at a lower value, a value that might represent the cost of the product instead of maybe the retail value of the product. So that's a great question, but it's tricky and there's a lot of nuances to it.
Yeah, and if you have to present it to someone internally, we can also give you the proper language for you to be all coached up, so that when somebody in the C-suite asks you a question about, hey, why does this make sense? We're going to provide you with the proper ammunition to present it to your boss, okay, or someone in the C-suite, in order to get the job done and have it make sense.
Right. I can't believe that we survived the Cargo Cafe without Libby.
Was just going to say, in wrapping things up, one, Dave, can't thank you enough for coming on. This is a very important topic, a very gray area for a lot of people. You brought up a couple of points that I've run into almost on a daily basis of, hey, I'm just going to cover this, and then I'm going to cover this with that policy, and just the lack of understanding, the lack of proper procedure just causes the nightmares. And really great insights. You are the power behind when we go out and talk about insurance. We're coming to you for the finer details and stuff. And as more questions come in, we will definitely direct them your way. And I do love the idea of kind of an open Q&A session at some point when it comes to insurance and specific questions. So again, thanks a lot. Awesome having you on. I'm so sorry that you had to deal with Jay and I, and you did not get the pleasure.
I am used to it.
Watching, didn't get to have Libby on here, who just does such a better job than Jay or I could ever do. So the good news is she will be back.
That's okay. She sent me a text. How are you holding up?
Yeah.
She's awesome. We're excited to have her back. Our next episode will be July 16th, and we will have Noah Stewart from Revenue Vessel on. So that'll be a big topic on data and how that impacts you and how you can utilize it and things like that. He is crazy smart, super fun to talk to. So that is going to be it's going to be better just because Libby's there from a host perspective, right? So yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, and before you go, everybody, thanks for coming, and also send us suggestions on things you want to talk about. We love to hear the suggestions, and we love the Cargo Cafe topics that are right on top of what we want to hear about.
Thanks again, Dave.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dave.
See you later.